Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds, leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to that like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, you should have done that already. Let's get into it. The bracket is set. Once again, they put 68 teams in it.
You gotta put 68 teams into this thing, but
I've been trying to tell you, but I know they got to put 68 teams in. I don't know if they got the right 68. North Carolina is included. The Tar Heels finished 22-13 overall, 1-12 in quadrant one. Most bracket projectors had them out of the field. Norlander, before we dive into the tip top of the bracket, let's touch on what was, I think, the biggest surprise from the selection show. How surprised were you when North Carolina was announced as an 11 seed set to play San Diego State in the first four?
I actually wasn't surprised North Carolina was in the bracket. And you want to know why? This was my own surmising. I obviously did not have a hint of the bracket beforehand. But every year, and I don't even know if this was the case, by the way, but when we were building out to do the interviews.
I think you're about to say the exact same thing I noticed as well, but go ahead.
So, the plan becomes, the plan had been to be clear, this is not like, at 4:47, the plan changed. It was, I want to say yesterday, hey, we're going to do Bubba Cunningham and Keith Gill. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I was like, wait a second. If Bubba Cunningham, like this has never happened before where, on CBS Sports HQ, where I did the interview, on CBS Sports Network, where you and the crew do the interviews there, it's always just the chair. And I thought, are they preparing in the event that Carolina gets in that, I can't ask the chair because he's not in the room when Carolina gets in. So in all honesty, Parrish, I thought there was a real possibility that Carolina was going to get in because they were doing this. And additionally, with that, with the metric stuff on all this stuff, with wins above bubble now being involved and Carolina clearly being much better positioned than some other teams, I don't think it should have been in the field. I've been clear on that. But surprised? No. I was bracing for it, and I even told a few HQ folks here, in the hour and a half or so before we got going, I was like, I put out my what I would do if I was in the field, but I was like, this isn't going to be right. There's going to be one or two teams that I'm off on, and I think Carolina's getting in. Lo and behold, Carolina's in.
So
is that what you were thinking? The same thing I was thinking.
I walked in the studio today, walked in the CBS Broadcast Center. I know after the selection show, we've got a 3-hour show. I don't really know exactly what my responsibilities are going to be in this show, except I knew I was going to interview the committee chair, or at least I was going to be among the people interviewing the committee chair on CBS Sports Network, that, of course, Bubba Cunningham. Then I was told it was going to be 2 people instead of 1, and I thought immediately the exact same thing you thought. And other people in the room, I should say. It was just like okay, are they in? Because it makes no sense. It makes no sense to bring 2 people to that interview unless the primary person is not going to be capable of answering some of the biggest question you're going to have. So yes, that was a little bit of a tip of the hand. I will say I was surprised that they're in because I don't think they should be in. If you can't do better than 1-12 in quadrant one, that's all I need to know. All right. That's all I need to know. If you can't do better than that, you had your chances. And I know they were a lot of really good quadrant one. I don't care. If you're 1-12 in quadrant one, I just don't want to see you. I will say you start putting the resumes though up to Indiana's, West Virginia's. It's not a blowout in the other direction that West Virginia, Indiana, these other schools clearly it's just crazy belonged in over North Carolina. I do think they did belong in over North Carolina though. So there's 2 main points here that I think are important. One, they really go out of their way to explain how Bubba is removed from the room and he's not in there. And I get all that. Yeah. I know. I get all that. I stopped short of, and that means there's no influence at all Of course, there's some influence. The head of the committee is the athletic director at North Carolina. I don't know how close all these people are on the committee, but I bet you some of them are friendly. I bet you they've had drinks together. I bet you they've had appetizers together. I bet you they've, shared cars back and forth to places together. That influence exists, whether or not you know it or not. So just because he's not in the room doesn't mean there's no influence whatsoever. There's influence. Not even I'm not trying to claim intentional influence. I'm just saying it exists among humans. And the other thing is there are so many data points now that the committee has access to that it really did feel like to me, if you were trying to argue in favor of Indiana, you can pull this data point and that data point and make your case. Arguing in favor of West Virginia, you can pull this data point, that data point, make your case. There's a lot of stuff to emphasize. It kind of just comes down to what do you want to emphasize? And when it got to North Carolina, they started emphasizing the things that mostly help North Carolina. I never heard so many people talk about a quad 2 record before. Like what
did you know?
When's the last time you heard a quad 2 record get emphasized?
Not on this podcast, that's for sure.
Yeah, we don't talk about things like that, but suddenly there's the committee, and
we don't talk about quad 2 records here. Okay, you take that talk elsewhere. Okay.
Yeah, come over here, try to talk about quad 2 stuff and see what happens. All right, we ain't doing it. But it's like, well, they were 8-0 in quadrant 2, and again, UNC, Indiana, West Virginia. If you told me right now, or if you gave me 10 minutes, and said, come back in 10 minutes and make an argument in favor of each of them independently, don't worry about contradicting yourself. Just make the argument, make it sound good. I could make it sound good for Indiana, for West Virginia, and I could make it sound good for North Carolina too. And that's what they did.
Quad 2 is the new quad 1. Who cares? Give me a quad 2. I just love the idea that the worst opponents that you played and the better you did and mean more than the best. It's amazing to me. Whatever. Carolina has as much appreciation and motivation as any team in the bracket, but this idea that they played 13 teams and they won 1 game, but hell, they didn't lose against all the other teams. Is it a crime against some humanity? Of course it's not. We're going to need to get to West Virginia, because the logic on that, oh my God, the logic on West Virginia. But this newfound territory that is quad 2, and it's outsized importance. I don't know when we're ever going to see this again, by the way. The sitting chair of the selection committee is the working athletic director of the last team into the field. Like, this is outrageous. And if anyone, in all seriousness, and we always get loopy on this show, I don't know where the hell we're going with this. I'm starving. And I can't wait to talk with you over the next hour plus. I'm sure a lot of people are going to go and run with whatever Carolina. That's fine. No, I'm actually going to believe the people that do this and do it professionally. And Bubba was never in the room when Carolina got discussed. To your point, doesn't mean that there can't be some influence here or there. I get all that. But if anyone else wants to go nuts over it, particularly if you are in the greater Morgantown area, I won't blame you.
If you want to make the West Virginia case, this would be the place to do it. Let's get all the bubble talk out of the way so we can focus on the bracket. West Virginia, 19-13 overall, 6-10 in quadrant 1. So they had 5 more quadrant 1 wins than North Carolina. But they were disappointing in quad 2. Only 4.
Actually, I don't even know. Lay it on me. What's that quad 2 record right now?
4-3, embarrassing.
That's disgusting. Get them out of my bracket.
That's disgusting. Get them out of the bracket. North Carolina went 8-0 in quadrant 2. Who does West Virginia even think it is?
Okay, so listen, as GP and I,
somehow North Carolina's quadrant 2 record was emphasized more than West Virginia's quadrant 1 record. If you want to make sense,
amazing,
of that.
And not just that. Okay, but just for our live listeners, and the chat's always humming on Selection Sunday. We appreciate you, but Parrish and I have not talked about any of this stuff. I don't know what he's got, but we're just going to roll with the punches. Having said that, I assume you're aware of what they said, maybe to me on HQ. I think they might have said it on CBS. We're doing the same thing, but very differently on different timelines. So you're aware of this Tucker DeVries stuff and the reasoning they use, I assume?
Tucker DeVries ain't played basketball in forever.
It's insane. And
you might as well say West Virginia lost Bob Huggins. So that's why you wanted to keep him out. But Hugs ain't there no more. Okay, yeah, we got it. They still did what they did. They still did what they did. Like, I couldn't believe Tucker's name came up. He's like mostly irrelevant to this basketball team.
It's an insane reason to keep a team out of the tournament. They have played more than 75% of their season without Tucker DeVries, and they have beaten more quad one teams than North Carolina by a factor of what, 3 or 4? It's not even close. And the idea that they were talking like he was Kenyon Martin. What are we doing here? And not only that, and I did say this on the HQ desk. Okay, West Virginia should be in the field. Palm had him as the first team going to Dayton, so not the last team in the bracket, but on Saturday, and I was like, Palm, I haven't seen a lot of West Virginia stuff. That's actually kind of intriguing by you. So, but bracket matrix, 100, every single bracket had him in. This is like Tulsa, like from 7-8 years ago. I will say this: it is actually in my opinion, it is a good thing that the committee is not falling prey to groupthink, and that it's not just, okay, what does bracket matrix have? Let me inform that. I actually think that's a good thing. However, if 111 people that go from the professionally well-played bracketologist to the diehard hobbyists doing this in their own niche world all have this team in the field and they're not in, you done messed up. It is, and the Tucker DeVries stuff is, it doesn't stand on its own merit. But Carolina's in, Xavier's in. They only have quad one win as well. But Xavier, this all connects this way. Quite clearly, Xavier not having Fremantle for the overtime loss to UConn and the 2-point loss to Marquette, which I know because I talked to Sean about. They hammered that to the committee, and now Fremantle's been available. That got him in. They're going to Dayton, whereas Tucker DeVries not being around wound up completely overturning West Virginia. This ranks among the 3 or 4 most shocking omissions I can ever remember in the NCAA tournament.
He hasn't played since December 6th. How about this?
We got to see more. We needed one more West Virginia game. Also, this goes to show you, don't lose to Colorado in your league tournament.
You ready for this? Tucker DeVries' injury mattered more to the selection committee than Cooper Flagg's.
Oh my God, that's right.
Tyrese Hunter is in a boot on the Memphis bench, and they didn't ding Memphis. They gave Memphis a 5 seed. Almost nobody thought Memphis was getting a 5 seed.
It's all over the place. We got to get to the bracket, but TJ Ossenberg came out and said, we're not going to have Keyshawn Gilbert. They called him out of it. This team has no business being on the 3 line. They like revealed the bracket. 2 seconds later, Ossenberg called a press conference, said, hey, this dude ain't playing for us anymore, but we're going to go take the 3 seed. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah. So, like, listen, with Indiana, like, I think Indiana should have been in the field over North Carolina as well. But with Indiana, you can at least look at them and go, hey, you could have done A, B, C. What could you tell West Virginia? You could have what?
Don't lose to Colorado.
You could have been good enough without Tucker DeVries. We were good enough without Tucker. And then they told us he's the reason, among the reasons we're not in. We were good enough without him. What? That's the one where I would be really frustrated. At some point, there's got to be a cut line, and every year somebody's going to make it that feels really fortunate to be there, and somebody else is going to get left out that feels like they got screwed. But this West Virginia thing, I think, is, I don't want to say an all-timer. I don't want to get hyperbolic. It just feels wrong. It just feels wrong because I don't appreciate the reasons. If you ever bring up Tucker DeVries' injury to this West Virginia team, I get it. Like, he was going to be one of their best players, if not their best player. He was maybe not their best player, but he was going to be one of the best players. And he's not there. That's not ideal. But they had more than 3 months to play basketball without him and to prove what they are without him. And what they showed they were without him, I think, was a team that, at the very least, I'll make it specific, belonged in the NCAA tournament field over the North Carolina team that got in.
For official bookkeeping purposes, your last 4 in, Carolina was the last one in the door, and then it was San Diego State, which is a joke. Boise State obviously doesn't get in. Okay, so UNC, then Carolina, UNC, then San Diego State, then Xavier, and then Texas was not near the cut line with 15 loss. Stop me. I'm not going on this tangent again about how loss volume should matter. I know you're in the toughest league, but the fact that Texas had this much leg room, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with Texas? And then this is an even bigger joke. Look at this. Look at this. West Virginia, Indiana. What? I'm tempted to drop the F word. What in the damn world is Ohio State doing above Boise State? What's going on? Like, what is going on? What's clear here in all seriousness is they added Torvik and they added wins above bubble. I love it. I love it. And these results happen because all these committee members have individual ballots. But I think more metrics could lead to wonkier outcomes. I think that's clear. I think you see that evidence with a couple of other seeds, which we'll get to later on. And we don't need to spend more than 7 more seconds on this. But the idea that Ohio State was ahead of Boise State on the collective balloting really signals that they had some major missteps. And Texas has a 15-loss team. It almost was playing on Thursday or Friday. SEC record 14 teams into the field in the Big Ten with 8. Big 12 with 7. Big East 5. Mountain West gets 4 along with the ACC. That's your cut line. We don't have to go nuts on it, but Tucker DeVries stuff, man. And by the way, if you're listening, the interview that I had with the committee chair and the vice chair is on our YouTube channel. You can give that a good look there. They held their own, but I know a lot of people care about this stuff in the immediacy, and so I did my best to hold their feet to the fire and not let them off with just bland talking points.
It does give us an interesting first 4 matchup, North Carolina against San Diego State. Because UConn went back-to-back title games, only 5 different schools have participated in one of the past 3 championship games of the NCAA tournament, and 2 of them will be playing in Dayton, North Carolina
Nugget
and San Diego State.
Nugget.
Let's move on. We'll touch on the top seeds briefly next because I don't think there was any surprises there. And then we'll dive into some interesting storylines from each regional. But first, let's get our first word from a partner.
Dive into the biggest moments from the big dance with NCAA March Madness Bracket Breakdown. Sunday on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Norlander, as expected, the top 4 seeds were Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida. Special shouts to all of the people who took time out of their busy days to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. To tell me I don't know what I'm talking about when I tell you Auburn's still going to be the number 1 overall seed, even though the Tigers have lost 3 of 4 games. Thanks for shouts to all the people who took time out of their days. You know what it's like? Just have a slew. Just wake up every morning to random people calling you an idiot, and then just watch the selection show. Just like, yep, that's exactly it. Yeah, the 2 seeds. Yep, that's exactly number 5, 6, 7, and 8 in the top 25 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4 is exactly the 1 seeds. 5, 6, 7, 8 is the 2 seeds. Oh, so far we're lining up pretty good. Auburn is your number 1 overall seed. I will say this. Just like I was talking North Carolina, Indiana, West Virginia. If you told me, all right, GP, here's $100, convince me it should have been Duke, I could do that, no problem. But I believe it should have been Auburn. And I was glad that the committee did exactly what it is they're supposed to do. Not who looks the best right now, not who is number 1 in predictive metrics, not who has been playing the best lately, not who's got the best record in the past 4 games, not who just won a conference tournament. You know what they're supposed to do? They're supposed to look from game 1 to the most recent game and evaluate resumes and reward accomplishments. And that's what they did. I know it hasn't looked good lately. Auburn has lost 3 of its past 4 games. But if you start on day 1 of the season to this moment we're sitting in right now, who had the best season to date? It is Auburn. Who accomplished the most to date? It is Auburn. I think the committee got it right. Do you believe they got it right?
Yeah, they got it right. I will say this. I think that the collective separation between Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida is tighter than we've seen with a lot of 1 seeds recently. And I would go so far as to say, when you look at actually what all these teams have done and the wins they've accrued, specifically against the level of teams, and if you want to take a look at their overall quad records and all that kind of stuff, the 1 seeds are really good every year. Don't get me wrong. But my instinct is to say that Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida in that order. This might be our best collection of 1 seeds in terms of team quality that we've had. 4, 5, 6, 7 tournaments. I think it's been a while. I think these are all really, really good teams. And I think there is a line of separation. Like, you will do nothing to convince me. Like some people thought that Tennessee could have gotten the 1 by beating Florida. I don't think that was on the table whatsoever. And I think that those 4 teams, while they're not all going to get to the Final Four, I mean, they could. It's only happened once in San Antonio in 2008. Yeah, they got it right. I think the order's exactly what I predicted. I believe it's the order exactly that you predicted. And yeah, this is how it should be. No complaints, no surprises. And they're really awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know that we know this for certain, but I believe you. I believe that the 1 seeds were locked up yesterday on Saturday. Once Florida advanced to the title game, I think the SEC tournament title game was going to have no impact on the bracket. Florida was going to be a 1 seed. Tennessee was going to be a 2 seed. I think it makes it easier for the committee when Florida just wins it. But I think Florida was going to end up a 1 and Tennessee a 2, no matter what. Let's stick in the South Regional, and then we'll just take it region by region. What's the first thing you noticed when you glanced at that part of the bracket? I bring that regional up because that is the regional where Auburn is the number 1 seed.
The South region, there's a lot to get to here. Okay. And by the way, for everyone listening, per usual, we are going to have a massive game by game. We do it every year. That's coming later this week. So this is just, whatever we see, reacts real time, all that stuff. We're not picking a bunch of games here. I might toss in a few picks that I've got. My bracket's already done. I already can't stand it, but we'll save that for another time. Louisville getting the 8. This was a thing that's been seen in a couple different spots here. The teams that don't have great seeding but could get geographic preference. First of all, Louisville's not an 8. I don't know what that's about, but it only has to drive to Lexington. Louisville Creighton is a tasty bird fight there. Feels 50-50 to me, but that's to Auburn. You're sending your number 1 overall seed to potentially play a Louisville team that has been really good this season, and it's got to drive hour and a half, Louisville to Lexington. I forget how long that drive is, but
not even
before
that.
we get to the rest of it. Okay, before we get to the rest of the bracket here, this, and by the way, this happened real quick. Awesome tribute to Gumbel off the top. I loved it, and then they got into that, and then it was credit to our entire team down there in New York. That was Zucker, boom. Auburn's the number 1 overall seed, and we were off and to the races. And so in real time, I was like, wait a second. Louisville's an 8. Wait a second. They're playing in Lexington. You're giving the number 1 overall seed a game potentially against Louisville in its home state. Seems like a miss. I don't know why. I'm going to believe that they could put Louisville in a different whatever. It's the number 1 overall seed. You're not doing them a favor by putting them there in the second round.
This is bad for Auburn. I mean, we had Bruce Pearl on our show tonight, and he was fine. He was like, hey, we already played in Lexington once this year, beat them by 2 touchdowns. We've won by 2 touchdowns inside Rupp. So hopefully we can do something like that again. But I was bothered on behalf of Auburn. We are the number 1 overall seed, and you could have us playing a round of 32 game against a Louisville team that has won a bunch, and it's about an hour, 10 minutes away from their campus. That just doesn't seem right. We had Bubba Cunningham on. I asked him specifically about this. I said, Bubba, when I got the bracket, among the first things I saw, because it's the top left corner, is Auburn might have to play Louisville in Lexington in the second round. I said, is that something you guys noticed, and was it discussed in the room? And he said, yes, we noticed that was a possibility. We did discuss it, and didn't feel like moving Louisville. Yeah, but F him. What if he would have said that? Yes, Gary.
Incredible. I'd love some honesty. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Gary, we obviously noticed that. We're not idiots. We did discuss it and basically landed on F. Pat Kelsey. You know what? He's got a hot wife and healthy kids. How about let's give him a game in Lexington. I guess it would be F. Bruce Pearl, not F. Pat Kelsey.
Well, it can be both. Louisville shouldn't be an 8, but whatever.
Yeah, both coaches should be mad about this. Both coaches should be mad about this. Pat should be mad. I got healthy kids, hot wife, won a lot of games, and you guys maybe an 8 seed against the number 1 overall seed in the bracket. That's not right. All right. And then if you're Bruce Pearl, you're like, hold up, Adam Zucker just told me we're the number 1 overall seed. Why do we got to play a road game? Why do we got to play a road game in a round of 32? You know what? Every time we spend more than 3 minutes talking about this, it doesn't materialize.
I know. Hey, I've got the Jays in my bracket. All right, and I think the Blue Jay is the more aggressive bird than the Cardinal. By the way, so that's not guiding my pick here, but it was brought up on the show tonight.
Let me say one thing real quick, because I just see something in the chat, and I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I'm not just sitting here talking about Pat Kelsey's wife. He famously this season talked about how good his life is.
Parachuting into the show, not knowing that happened, is amazing.
Yeah, I forget. We got a pretty unusually large audience here, larger than normal, I should say. And no, I'm not just talking about other men's wives, you weirdos. You're the weirdo. Keep up with the sport. Pat Kelsey talked about his hot wife and his healthy children. I'm just repeating what he said. So, like, you ever hear me say Dan Hurley is the best coach in the effing sport? It ain't necessarily because I believe that. It's because he said it. I'm just repeating what he said. Same thing about Pat Kelsey. Continue. Chats.
All right, let's keep it moving.
I couldn't let that just sit in the chat.
You're fine. Actually, it is very funny to me, the idea. Now, people listening are going to understand the context, but like, all right, haven't listened to this pod since last March. What are these dudes doing talking about these coaches' wives? All right. Michigan, UC San Diego, Texas A&M, and Yale. Michigan got screwed. Dude, I asked them straight up, did the Big Ten tournament title game mean a thing? Yeah, we accounted for it. We had two different brackets.
No, they didn't. No.
Really? Michigan has zero business being a 5. This is indefensible. And I remember, actually, Parrish, I feel like the past 2 times we've done this, you've been in New York, I've been here in HQ. We've been like, a little here, a little there, but we think the committee did a nice job. All right, here's your list of quad 1 teams with the most victories. Auburn, as of now, is 15. It's gone down. You just lose it, man. It just drops out of the pocket. You think you got 16, suddenly you got 15. By the way, Kansas still has the all-time record now with 17 going into a tournament. Houston has 13. Michigan State has 13. Michigan is 12. It's number 4. Now, it's got some losses. I understand that. But it won the Big Ten tournament. Wisconsin State a 3. Michigan has beat Wisconsin twice. And not only does Michigan get a 5, not as if that wasn't bad enough, Michigan gets the 5. It's got to go out to Denver, and it's got to play a UC San Diego team that I think might have a shorter flight than Michigan, and UC San Diego is 36 at Ken Palm. Wolverines got absolutely screwed.
I've already updated the top 25 and 1 for the last time this season. Woo!
Hey!
It's a big day. It's a big day.
Love it.
Imagine it's just like you did something every day for like 4+ months, and then you just get to wake up tomorrow and you don't have to do it. That's a big win for me. I've got Michigan 9th in the final top 25 and 1 because that's where their resume suggests they belong to me. 9th. That's 3 seed. They can say whatever they want to say, and I cannot prove that they're not telling the truth. All right. So I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm just saying I do not believe that the Big Ten tournament title game mattered because
there's no defense for it. They did not account for it, man. You cannot look at Michigan's resume, sort out this bracket, even if you had to nudge an SEC team because you got 14 of them in this thing, and tell me that Michigan was a 5. That's a joke.
Yeah, I don't believe that it matters. I do not believe that Michigan's seed improved with a Big Ten tournament title game victory. And that's wrong. That's wrong unless you tell us the truth, which is here's the truth. They got to have a game to lead into the selection show. That's the truth. All right. And they also got to have a bracket ready before the selection show starts because we have to build graphics. I don't mean to get too inside baseball on you, but all those graphics that you see on TV, they don't just pop up there. Somebody has to build those.
Yes.
All right. I don't believe that Michigan won and they went back in, or I don't believe we got a contingency bracket. Michigan as a 5 seed makes no sense if you count the Big Ten tournament championship game. I guess that's maybe the best way to put it.
That is a 10 Eastern game on Thursday night. Before that is Yale, Texas A&M. I went to Denver in 2011, my first tournament I covered for CBS, and 3 of the first 4 games that year involved upsets. I think that's on the board again out in the Rocky Mountains. Bottom half of the bracket here in the South, San Diego State, UNC, obviously in Dayton. Ole Miss is going to be the 6th there. Iowa State, Lipscomb. We mentioned the Keyshawn Gilbert stuff. If GP wants more, I'll toss it back to you in a second. Marquette, New Mexico in the 7-10 in this region. I actually think that's super tasty. And Donovan Dent, Cam Jones is an awesome. Those are 2 of the 6 best guards in the country this season. Michigan State gets Bryant. Overall in the South, not my favorite region, not my least favorite region. A lot of compelling stuff here. And I would say Auburn overall is the number 1 seed. I would say they weren't given a ton of favors, but I don't think they were given as tough of a region as they could have otherwise gotten. And so the number 1 overall seed, they shouldn't necessarily get the toughest region. And as expected, they were never going to be faced with an SEC team as a 2 seed, though Tennessee and Bama are on the other side of the bracket.
We're not going to pick these regions now, are we? We got so much space to
no. That's
I think.
If I think we're going to do a monster preview, whatever. I think a lot of the stuff is going to be Tuesday. My last comment on the South, though, is I've got some upsets here. I will see if I change them. I do think the potential for this region to have real chaos is very, very, very real. Like if you told me New Mexico got to the Sweet 16, I'd believe you. If you told me Iowa State was able to recover from no Gilbert, I'd believe you. If you told me Michigan like continued to get hot and beat Auburn and got to the lead, I believe you on a lot of this stuff. This is a very, very fun region.
Let's go to the West Regional, where Florida is the number 1 seed. That's bottom left if you're looking at your bracket. What stands out to you in the West? St. John's, of course, the 2 seed there.
Before we get into the matchups, I think we're on the same page. What stands out to you? I say what it is, and I think we're going to think the same thing.
Well, first, if you look at the official seed list from the NCAA, St. John's is the, quote, worst of the 2 seeds. So 8
yeah, that's why they're
in their rankings. First off, I think that's wrong. Not dramatically wrong.
I agree.
I'll put it this way. If I were a 1 seed and you told me these are the 2 seeds, this is the 2 seed I would have not wanted in my region. I would have said send them somewhere else. I wouldn't want any part of a 30-win St. John's team that just won the Big East tournament and is being coached by one of the all-time greats. To me, that's the toughest 2 seed to deal with. That's the one. If I were a coach, that's the one I wouldn't want. So good luck to Todd Gold.
Yeah, I agree with you. What I was leading you on with there was this is the region, and it's a selection.
Oh, you got tons of championship coaches. Tons of championship coaches.
Hall of Fame. You've got Dan Hurley. You've got Rick Pitino. You've got Bill Self. You've got John Calipari. Those are all active or future Hall of Fame coaches, in addition to some other really, really good coaches here. You've got super hot teams like Florida's the hottest team in the country. Colorado State is on fire and gets it to the 12 there. Drake is 30-3. Texas Tech has been a top 10 metrics team. This is a loaded region. Florida's the 4th 1 seed, so it gets the toughest road theoretically, and also gets put into a spot here where I think Florida will be a trendy pick to make the title game. And if you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. You can see this region right here in front of your face. We're not going to go through a ton of picks. I do not have Florida making the Final Four, and in part, it is because this region is stacked, and I actually hadn't thought about this yet, Parrish. We've just been doing a million things. I do think when I take everything into account, I know UConn's been up and down, whatever. It's Dan Hurley. They're going to the tournament. You got them. Memphis has beaten some real teams. Colorado State is on a rocket. Maryland has one of the 6 or 7 best starting 5s in the country. Drake is the best mid-major in the country. That's maybe not UC San Diego. Kansas, Bill Self Hall of Famer, St. John. I think Florida's, they don't have to play all the teams. That's an important thing to remember, but I think this is the toughest region. Do you agree? I think I'm looking at the Midwest and East right now. I do think this is the toughest.
I'm just glad you don't have to play all the teams. That would be exhausting.
That wouldn't it? It would take a long time as well. Yes.
It'd just take too long. I think it would take too long. So I'm glad we do it this way. I could improve it, but I prefer this to what you suggested. Obviously, Florida's operating at an extremely high level. If somebody wants to say that looks like a national championship team to me, I won't argue. But I, like you, do not have Florida going to the Final Four. Spoiler alert, I've got St. John's there. I've got St. John's in the Final Four. Let me ask you this, and we've touched on it before, but Florida is a bigger story right now than it has been at any point in this season. A number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, SEC tournament champions. You know, Kyle Boone has a what to know about accusations against Gators coach Todd Golden as team readies for NCAA tournament. Like, that's a headline perfect for Google searches sitting at cbssports.com right now. Like, is this going to be a thing where he's asked about it in press conferences, or is this going to be a deal where non-sports reporters show up at Florida games to ask questions? According to the campus newspaper in Florida, multiple women have made serious allegations against him. I should point out they did conduct a Title IX investigation, and that found no evidence, according to the results of the investigation, of Title IX violations. So, like, that's important to note. But the allegations are still the allegations, and according to the campus newspaper, they came from multiple women. I guess just sort of thinking through this, like, I wouldn't be surprised at any day between now and the start of anything if just some woman was given an interview and here's her story to do you think this is going to be a big thing that just pops up at some point and it's going to get real uncomfortable for Florida at the very least Florida's coach?
I would never say never, but they did do the investigation and they didn't find anything that could corroborate what was in that story. So no, I don't think so. But by the pure nature of Florida being a 1 seed and being a dominant, again, the players on this roster have been operating on just what they did in the SEC tournament was insane. So no, to your question, Parrish, I don't put it out of the realm of possibility, but I don't expect it to be. Which isn't to say that someone from New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or whatever wouldn't show up and follow up on it. But I don't know how the story would get advanced unless there was new allegations or anything that came to light, and that hasn't been the case since Golden was cleared earlier this season. By the way, real quick, I wanted to mention this because you mentioned the overall seed list for folks listening. Auburn is 1, Duke is 2, Houston is 3, Florida's 4, Tennessee 5, Bama 6, Michigan State 7, St. John's 8, and then the threes are Texas Tech is 9, Iowa State 10, Kentucky 11, and then Wisconsin 12. You had mentioned the overall seed list, and people listening might not be able to keep track of that. So I at least wanted to give some context there. St. John's is in the West. And I would not have had it as the last 2. I knew it was going to happen. I actually speaks to sometimes my lack of faith in the committee. I actually wondered if they were still going to try and put this team on the 3 line. They didn't. How about this? What do you think, GP? I am a believer. Give me the better seed versus the travel. Like now, because of this, if St. John's gets to the second weekend, it's not going to play in Newark. It's going to play out in San Francisco. Would you rather be a 3 playing in Newark or a 2 playing in San Fran, not knowing who you'd face?
Put me in Newark. What are you talking about?
I think I'd still rather be the better seed with the more likely chance that I'm going to play a worse team. I understand. Like, it's actually a pretty close call. I think I'd still take the 2, but if anyone wants to say they'd rather be the 3 and all you got to do is hop on a bus and take a ride for 45 minutes to get to the arena, I'm not saying you're wrong whatsoever.
Well, whether you're a 2 or 3 seed, let's just talk through it real quick. You should win your first game and you should win your second game. And then your third game is against theoretically this whatever, like the same team. I mean, if you were you're playing a comparable team to you. If you're the 2, you're playing a 3, and if you're the 3, you're playing the 2. That's my point. So then what? It's just I'd rather be close to home. If the difference is between 1 and 2, I might just want the 1. But if the difference is between 2 and 3, and I can be home or in California, yeah, keep me home.
Okay. I'm going to be in Providence, which means I get Kansas, Arkansas, St. John's, Omaha, and then I know we'll get there, GP. I just want to see this in real time. There's been so much. It's hard to keep track of. What are my other 2 games here in Providence? They're not in this region. Providence also has I get McNeese, Clemson. I get Will Wade and Brad Brownell, and then I get High Point, Purdue. Okay, I guess maybe I'm gonna be a little bit Boilermaker there. They're coming to Providence as well. Those games will be on Thursday. Let's wrap up the West, though. Couple questions for you. Let's go rapid fire. Okay? Improv. UConn going to have any issue with Oklahoma? Are they going to be 1 and done in the tournament?
Oklahoma will be 2 and done. I mean, UConn will be 2 and done in the tournament.
Okay. You got Memphis versus Colorado State. The Rams have been incredible. Nick Clifford has been I actually have to, with the USBWA, did you do this as well? We have to do our ballots at the end of the regular season. Did you fill that out or did you miss the deadline?
No, I filled it out. I hit the deadline.
Okay. I put Nick Clifford on my All-American team. Did you?
I did not.
I did. I think he's earned it. He's been ridiculous as of late, so I put him on there.
Yeah, I don't mind you doing that. I did not, but I won't argue with you. He's been terrific. That Memphis-Colorado State game is really interesting. Classic 12-5 matchup. Mackenzie Brooks was in studio with us tonight. She's the betting analyst, one of the betting analysts for CBS Sports. She said her simulations have Colorado State with a 70% chance to win the game as a 12 seed. CSU, Colorado State, opened as a 2.5-point favorite in the game. And obviously some of this is tied to, despite being a 5 seed, Memphis has terrible predictive metrics relative to
bad.
What a 5. Yeah. All right. And then secondly, Tyrese Hunter has got a foot injury. He did not play in the AAC tournament title game. And we'll see. Let Memphis announce that on their own time frame. But there ain't been a lot of encouraging reports coming out of the program.
I can't believe they're in the tournament then, if that's the case. I can't believe the committee let Memphis into the field.
One of Memphis's let's just say top 3 players is in a boot, and that mattered less to the committee than Tucker DeVries.
You're right. They literally could have adjusted to this if they really wanted to. Memphis is fascinating. They have defeated UConn, Michigan State, Missouri, Clemson, Ole Miss. They've got really good wins, but their metrics are terrible. They've got a couple of bad losses. They had closer losses than you would expect, and so Colorado State registers ahead of them. This is such a trendy 12. I'm here's one spoiler. I have Colorado State winning. I told myself Colorado State's going to be on the 12. I said I don't care the team. I'm sticking to it. I said no matter the 5, I'm picking Colorado State. They look amazing. Nico Medved is on an incredible farewell tour. I will be stunned if this dude's not the next head coach at Minnesota. And I think that this is now getting so popular that it's going to, you know how this works? The most popular 12 over 5 almost never hits. I feel like it's trending that way.
No, yeah, everybody,
really good teams.
Like everybody picks a 12-5. Most people are going to pick this 12-5. And then PJ Haggerty's going to score like 31 points and Memphis wins. I'm not predicting that, but that is the way these things tend to go, or at least sometimes go. A couple more things in the West.
Okay.
You know, it's not just that you get all these national championship coaches in the region. 2 of them are going against each other. You get Arkansas against Kansas, and the winner gets Rick Pitino. I don't ever think they
could be Cal Pitino, but I don't have that. I think self-win, but Cal Pitino would be please.
What is better? The blue blood Kansas against Rick Pitino and St. John's, or John Calipari against Rick Pitino and St. John's?
It's Calipari. By the way, Kansas has never made the Sweet 16 when it was preseason number 1, and now it needs to get through Arkansas and likely St. John's in order to stop that streak. Doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Another first round matchup in the West that I am interested in: Drake, Missouri.
Hell yeah.
Fun first round matchup. Drake is 30-3, 18-1 in its past 19 games. Missouri is really good. Incredible season for Dennis Gates, given what they went through last season, but they have dropped 4 of their past 5. Missouri opened as a 6.5 point favorite. That'll be another place I bet where people can't wait to take those points.
Yeah. Drake is super duper tempting. I like the contrast in styles. Mark Mitchell hasn't played as of late. I don't know if he's going to be available for this. He's their leading scorer for Mizzou. Keep an eye on that as well. Super fun region. Love the West here. Where do you want to go next?
Let's go to the East Regional. That's your top right corner of your bracket. That's where Duke is the number 1 seed. What stands out to you when you look at the East region?
You know what? Let's partner this. Let's get ready. I'm going to tell you what I think about the East region. I don't even know if you have it. But first, how about I'm going to take a bite of sushi and let's get a word from our partners.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. One of golf's elite courses, Quail Hollow, hosts the game's top players at the PGA Championship this May on CBS.
All right, now that the bills are paid,
7 seconds to down a piece of sushi.
This is called a shot clock violation.
It is.
Did you notice? I took a nice drink and then had it out of the camera view by the time we came back. I got my shot off, and you've just violated the shot clock. You violated the shot clock.
I'm going with some LaCroix here. All right. I did. What do you want from me? It's a selection show Sunday. We love it. All right. Duke gets the winner of American and Mount St. Mary's. It's almost impossible with TV stuff and being on the air consistently and doing what we got to do to keep up with the timeline. I did see something pass along that I think John Shire said on ESPN that Cooper Flagg's intention or their intention is to have him play Friday. I don't even know if you saw this, Parrish. Did you see this?
The way I read the quote, I didn't see it. The way I read it was our intention is for him to play on Friday, which is fine.
My expectation, yeah. I don't think this dude wants to not play in a single NCAA tournament game in his one and only year in college. So they don't have to play Thursday. They play Friday. By the way, I think this is a non-primetime Duke game for the 116. But it's a 116, and they're absolutely going to roll them, so that doesn't surprise me. Duke on Friday. Yeah, that's going to be mid-afternoon, I believe. All right, Mississippi State, Baylor.
Well, just real quick, because we're both going to get asked a million times over the next week. What do we think they're going to do? What do we think they should do? I'm not his trainer. I don't know what.
Yes, but you are a doctor.
I am a doctor. I know I'm a doctor, but I'm not his trainer. Here's my point: is this? I don't know how that ankle looks today, feels today. All right, I don't know how to look and feel on Friday. if it looks great on Friday and he feels great on Friday and he's like, I just feel great. I just feel normal. Then go play. What do I care? But if there's anything that's not, I'm talking about if it's 98%, like I feel good, I'm 98%, buddy, we're going to go knock the 16 seed out with our 3 other first round picks. Because that's the thing. You got to remember about Duke. With Cooper Flagg, they're the most talented team in the country. Without Cooper Flagg, they still might be the most talented team in the country as it pertains to NBA talent. They're loaded. And if he's not 100%, I would trust that my other players can get past a 16 seed. And I would be preparing to bring Cooper Flagg back into my rotation at the earliest on Sunday, unless he tells me before then, no, this isn't like I'm playing injured. I'm 100%. If he's not 100%, he should not play Friday.
I would agree. I don't know if there's any telling if he can be 100% in, like, say, the next 2 weeks. I don't know, but I just think you sit him. They're not going to get pushed by that team, and he's going to want to. I think he's going to want to play. Like, at most, he'll be able to play 6 tournament games, and there's no guarantee that you even get 3 tournament games. So he's probably not going to want to waste that. That'll be interesting. Mississippi State Baylor's the 8-9 in the East. To me, this is the least compelling of the 4 8-9s, only because Baylor's been up and down. Baylor, it's a 9 seed. Okay, sure. Like, it doesn't matter, but put Drake on a 9 line, not Baylor. Baylor has been too underwhelming all season long. Mississippi State, I do like them in that matchup. I think I picked them here. I think I'm going to stick with that. We can keep it moving down. Oregon plays Liberty. Arizona plays Akron. Akron has 1 loss in 2025. John Gross, they won in the thriller on Saturday in the MAC title game against Miami U against his half brother Travis Steele. Liberty is better than you probably think. Flames under Richie McKay have done a good job this season and came out of CUSA, and I actually think that they can. The Ducks have had a lot of good wins, and they've had 1 loss, I think, in the past 5 weeks. Liberty is top 65 at KenPom. It's 2nd in the country in effective field goal percentage and 5th in 3-point shooting. And these 12-5s are so crispy, GP. I think there's something there. Before we get to the bottom half, your impressions on any of these teams or games. Zona Akron, I actually do like Zona there, but Akron's been hot. Anything entice you, or is this just kind of an okay top half for you?
Well, I will say Duke was the easiest team for me to get to the Final Four. I think I like Duke's theoretical path to San Antonio more than any other 1 seed. Their 2 seed is Alabama. They've got an injury issue.
We don't know Grant Nelson's status moving forward.
Like we'll run through the bracket, but I have Duke against VCU in the Elite 8. Like I got Duke needing.
First of all, that's a hell of a pick. And Tim Doyle on HQ also took VCU to the Elite 8, and that's a spoiler for the Tuesday show. But that's ballsy. Look at you trying to make sure Virginia doesn't get its next coach anytime in the next 2 weeks. Wow.
trying to delay Virginia's coaching search as long as I can.
Yes.
But yeah, like obviously I hate it when people start talking about Duke has an easy path because you don't know what Duke's path's going to be, or Auburn's got a hard path. You don't know what Auburn's path's going to be, and sometimes what looks like it could be the hardest path ends up being the easiest. Like that happens sometimes in the NCAA tournament. So I don't know exactly who Duke's going to play, but the theoretical path, like the one that I've got laid out in a bracket, seems pretty manageable to me. I do not have Duke winning the national championship, but I do have Duke. I didn't even have to think about that one. I got Duke into the Final Four pretty easily.
Okay, I would certainly buy that. It's going to be an overwhelmingly popular pick, just a minimum make the Final Four, and I can't disagree with that on some level. I'm not saying I'm going to stick with Duke, but this is the number 1 team in all predicted metrics. I do have BYU beating VCU. That is, we don't know what 2 of the other 6-11 games are going to be, but even as they stand, what they could be, I think that BYU VCU will be the best 6-11 matchup that we get in the first round of this year's tournament. Wisconsin, Montana doesn't really rev the engines. I think Wisconsin should win without too much resistance. St. Mary's, Vanderbilt also doesn't really rev my engines. I think that St. Mary's got a really good draw for itself, and the Gales should be able to handle the Commodores, who they might have been just a little bit higher in the bracket than I thought. So it goes, and then Bama against Robert Morris. Bobby Moe here, back in the tournament for the second time under Andy Toole. Again, Grant Nelson's got to get his knee evaluated on Monday, and that will determine his availability, his productivity if he is available. I reserve the right to adjust my bracket based on the news that develops with Grant Nelson over the next 24 to 48 hours. The East to me is the least interesting of the 4 regions overall. And maybe that speaks to why you picked Duke to squeak on through. But you know what? You know how this tournament works. Just because you say that, we could be talking by Sunday night and be like, how awesome were these games in the East? 2 buzzer beaters. You never know how it's going to play out there. I find it to be the region with the least amount of likelihood to have upsets, generally speaking.
All right, let's go to the Midwest region. That's where Houston is the number 1 seed. When you looked at that, you saw Houston as the 1, Tennessee as the 2. What stood out in that region?
You know what? I think Houston's road. Okay. I think Houston's road could be nearly as easy as Duke if it breaks the way we think it is, with the exception of the second round game. So this is what we have to talk on first. You've got Houston SIUE, Cougar on Cougar game. We already know what's going to happen there. Gonzaga against Georgia. Now, everyone's going to take Gonzaga in this game. I have taken Gonzaga in this game. Let's do a quick rehash on Gonzaga and what it's done. It is 9th at KenPom. It's top 10 in basically every metric. Resume-wise, it beat Baylor. What's Baylor? It beat San Diego State. Barely made the field. Beat Indiana. Not in the field. Beat St. Mary's once. That's what Gonzaga has done of note. That's it. That's it, Parrish. It's not unthinkable to me that Georgia, Asa Newell, Silas Demery, Blue Cane. Yes. If you're a casual, Georgia has a dude named Blue Cane, and it's amazing. I'm going to take Gonzaga to win, and if that does happen, we are going to have Houston against Gonzaga in the second round. That is a top 10 KenPom matchup. It could truly be one of the 4 or 5 best games. If those teams play to their potential, it could be one of the 4 or 5 best games of the entire tournament, GP.
I talked to Bubba Cunningham about this exactly earlier in the week. We had him on one night. Everything's running together.
The days don't matter. Yep.
Yeah.
They don't matter.
And I literally said, let's talk about Gonzaga. This is a team that in the results-driven metrics is not that strong. The resume is lacking. But in the predictive metrics, they're in the top 10 multiple places. I think they were as high as 8th in the net. I said, so how do you handle this? On one hand, the results suggest they might need to be seeded in that 8-9 range. On the other hand, if you do that, you are making a 1 seed play a top 10 KenPom team in the second round. And that could be unfair to them. How do you balance all that out? And he said some stuff. It doesn't matter what, but like, here we are. Like, I could sort of see this coming, even if this is one you and I talked about it. I don't know exactly. I don't feel strongly about it one way or another because, on one hand, like you win what you win and you lose what you lose, and the games matter how they matter, and that is how we'll decide whether you belong in the bracket, and then that'll determine how we seed you in the bracket. I have not figured out a crystal clear way in my head to balance these things out where you are, yes, we're focused on the results of games. Everybody's played a lot of games. We're focused on the results, but I don't think you can be completely ignorant to the predictive metrics. I mean, they're in the room for a reason that tell you this team is way better than its resume suggests. And if you seed them down here, is that being unfair to this team up here? It's very difficult to navigate through that. And nobody has ever offered a perfect solution to that issue that I've heard, at least.
There is no perfect solution. Given Houston potentially Gonzaga in the second round is one hell of a. I get it. I just I personally if you did the whole thing, and this would never work this way. I'm not suggesting this should be protocol, but like you go through it all. Team lands on an 8. Gonzaga, maybe just move them up to a 7. But I get it. There are some people that are super hardline on this. Like the resume is the resume. but there's a reason why they have predictive metrics on the sheet. And sometimes that stuff does help guide the process. And certainly when you're talking about team quality, that also is part of it. Let's keep it moving in the Midwest. Games I mentioned before: Clemson, McNeese, Purdue, High Point. You've got Clemson Tigers in the midst of their winningest season ever. Made the Elite Eight last season. They've got a healthy chance to get to the second weekend again. McNeese, Will Wade, he's got a good team. This one isn't quite as good as the one last season, but it's still plenty good. He's got a couple of high major down transfers that are impactful there. And then Purdue versus High Point, Alan Huss has done a great job. Between Wade and Huss, I put that at better than 50%. At least one of those guys will be at a different job in a matter of a week or two. Purdue, I'll be interested to see how the general public treats Purdue. How trendy of a pick for an upset they are in this game. How many pick them to the Sweet 16? There's no Edey anymore. Braden Smith has been. You can make the case. Braden Smith has been in a first-team All-American this season. And Clemson's got some guys as well. Chase Hunter's a real dude. Dylan Hunter is out. He's got a broken hand, so he's not going to play in this tournament. That's pretty intriguing overall. I'll go to the bottom half. Texas plays Xavier in the first four. The winner will get Illinois. What's intriguing about this to me is I had identified Illinois and Kentucky as what I call the choose your own adventure teams of this tournament. Well, lo and behold, they're in the same damn pod, if you will. And I don't think Kentucky will have issues with Troy. I do think there's a chance Xavier can get past Texas, and then we'll face Illinois. If you want to really get deep on this, the Texas Xavier thing is intriguing because these two teams met in the tournament in 2022 when Rodney Terry, or 2023, I guess it was, when Rodney Terry was the interim and on his way to winning out the job. Texas beat Xavier in the Sweet 16. Sean Miller was a candidate to get the Texas job in the here and then. He wasn't going to take it, obviously. Or at least I don't think he would have. He had just gotten to Xavier. They helped kind of pull him out after he'd gotten fired at Arizona. But here they are. They meet again 2 years later, and it's in the first four. Xavier benefited. GP, I'm losing track of what I've said on the show versus what I said on television for 3 hours. Yeah. Xavier benefited from this Fremantle stuff. I think I said that on the pod earlier because they didn't have it for two of those games. This could be baller time. Ryan Conwell I saw him drop 38 at the Garden a couple of nights ago. Him versus Trey Johnson. Please, I am begging both these dudes to go for 30 plus in this game and give us something really awesome in Dayton. And then of course, Texas getting in means that 14 teams from the SEC have made it. I know we're in an era of conference expansion. I guess there's the possibility one day we'll have 20 team conferences. So I'm never going to say never, but it feels like this is not going to be replicated. It's insane that 14 out of 16 teams from a league got in. I mean, it could happen, Parrish, but it's just it's wild that it went this way and that Texas it didn't even squeak in. It's going to Dayton, but it was the best seeded team of the four there. And then I'll wrap up in your thoughts. UCLA, Utah State. Wait, what did I say? Oh, I said who's playing? I had a thing you would have appreciated on HQ where because Cronin's only got to fly. Where's he flying to? Where's UCLA flying right now? He's flying to UCLA is flying to Lexington. Okay, not that bad. But that's what it was. It was Maryland. Maryland's got the reverse Cronin. And I said on HQ, I was like, you don't understand how pissed off Kevin Willard's going to be when he looks out that plane and he sees the Space Needle. Like, so Maryland gets Maryland. Someone explained to me how Illinois as a 6 gets to take a trip to Milwaukee, and Maryland is a 4 and's got to fly out the first weekend and play in Seattle. Just explain it to me. I'd certainly like to know. I can only imagine Scott Van Pelt, diehard public Maryland fan, what his reaction is to all this. It doesn't make sense to me. UCLA plays in Lexington against Utah State. I actually like the Aggies a lot there. And then Tennessee, Wofford on the bottom half. Your elongated thoughts. Have at it, GP. What do you think on the rest of this region?
Well, like you just asked another totally reasonable question about seeding and bracket stuff. And it just sort of reminds me, I like every morning I do this top 25 and 1, and every morning there's questions. And I would say, and I'm not even trying to be mean or whatever other word you might use. I'm just saying about 90% of the questions I get about the top 25 and 1 on a daily basis are just nonsensical. They're just dumb questions. Every once in a while, if I'm being honest, there'll be somebody who will lay something out and I'll go, okay, let me look at this. And I'll go, yeah, I might've messed that up. Yeah, yeah, I see where you're coming from. I might have messed that up. And so that is what the Bubba Cunningham is like. Imagine if the whole world looked at the top 25 and 1 every morning and had real questions about it every single morning. like it just gets overwhelming because there are going to be days where it gets hard to explain something that you've already done and can't change. And I think every committee chair finds themselves in that situation. It doesn't mean things couldn't be better or shouldn't have been different, but when you put together a bracket of this size, there is always going to be things in there that either people don't make sense, people don't think make sense because they don't make sense, or people don't think make sense just because they've decided that it doesn't. Either way, you're going to have to. It's a hard job where you don't get a lot of pats on the back when you're done.
I agree with that. Overall, I did say this on HQ. I love the bracket every year. I love the matchups. I do find myself looking at the first round and potential second rounds this year, and this one feels like it's just maybe got a little. Maybe this is the quality of the teams at the top. I don't know. I'm pretty excited for what we got coming here. This feels like there's just a little bit more to the bracket this year. Speaking of brackets, by the way, the podcast does have a CBS Sports bracket games group pool, however you want to define it. CBSsports.com/Ion. That is EYEON. CBSsports.com/Ion. We will link this, at least I hope we will, in every podcast that we do this week on audio, but also if you're watching on YouTube, we'll put this in after the fact. Feel free to join. I'm told the winner gets a subscription for a year of Paramount Plus. I want to see if we can get that for a top 5. We could get hundreds, if not thousands, of people into this thing. And you know, why not dang a little carrot there? Maybe we can do even something special for the winner overall. Give you a shout on the show. Certainly. I actually try and do that every year. Top 3, top 4, top 5, give you a shout. Maybe we can do something even a little bit extra. GP and I will be sure to have our picks in there, and I will be sure to file picks by the end of the night here. And then I will be changing a couple of them because I do it every single year. Trying to think of it before we get out of here, Parrish. Any other stuff? Couple notes here on the tournament. This is the 86th NCAA tournament, dating back to 1939. There have been 3,703 NCAA tournament games played. 37 schools have won a national title. 15 of them have multiple championships. Since 2004, 6 schools have won 16 of the 20 titles. Those schools are Duke, Florida, Kansas, Carolina, UConn, and Villanova. Villanova is not in the field. First timers, SIUE, High Point, Omaha, UC San Diego, first appearances there. And then the schools, the only school that really is snapping a long drought is St. Francis, last there in 1991. There's goodies across the board. We'll get into more of this as the week goes along. But this week is always just such a joy. One of the things I love about college basketball is the tournament's incredible, Selection Sunday's incredible, but the urgency that comes basically from Wednesday through today with these conference tournament games, and they mean so much in the moment. Of course they do, or at least we think they do, unless you're Michigan, I guess, or West Virginia, and then we have the bracket, and it's so instantly vapor. It's just in the rear view, and we're looking ahead to it. And I love doing this pod every single year. You got anything else? Any talking points, questions, complaints? What you lost? I'm in no rush, GP. So if you want to even go more, we can go more. But those are the 4 regions.
I'm glad you mentioned Omaha as a first-time NCAA tournament maker. I don't know if that's the way you say that.
Participant.
Participant. We had Chris Crutchfield on the show tonight and got a chance to talk to him. I love these stories. I'm assuming most people don't even know who Chris Crutchfield is. He's the head coach at Omaha. He's 56 years old. Has been an assistant, a million different places. He's worked for Dana Altman. He's worked for Eric Musselman. He's worked for, some of the best coaches in college basketball. But he's the classic assistant who it took probably longer than it should have for him to, get his first Division I head coaching job. He is not only a Division I head coach now for his second season at the age of 56, meaning he got this job in his, mid-50s. Mm-hmm. He's the head coach at his alma mater. He's a head coach at his wife's alma mater. Like, this is a husband and wife who went to school here. And he was a 2-sport athlete there, played basketball and football. I just can't imagine the joy you must carry around with you. First off, you spent decades as an assistant coach. He was a junior college head coach and lower than Division I level stuff. But for him to get this shot, it took a long time. I assume at some point you wonder if it's ever going to happen, and maybe wonder why it's not happening. And there's always some theories about that. But then it does happen, and in year 2, very quickly, you take your alma mater to the NCAA tournament for the first time. Like, it's just an awesome story. I hope it gets a lot of attention. And then, oh, by the way, congratulations! Now you got to deal with Rick Pitino and St. John's.
I know.
But even then, like, I asked Chris about that. He's like, it'll just be great for us. It's a big stage. Like, we get to play in the NCAA tournament. I'm paraphrasing here, but this is more or less the sentiment. We get to play in the NCAA tournament against a team from New York City, against a team that's going to bring all that media, and against a team that just won the Big East and won the Big East tournament. And they got Rick Pitino, and like, we'll see how it goes, but man, what an awesome just stage. I'm going to be on a stage. How about that? If I told Chris 20 years ago, one day you will be a head coach, man, keep your head up. It's going to happen for you. You're going to be a head coach at the Division I level. It's going to be at your alma mater. You're going to take them to the tournament for the first time in school history in year 2, and your first round opponent will be Rick Pitino at St. John's. He'd probably go, what is Rick Pitino doing at St. John's? He'd probably start there, right? What went on there? But just awesome stuff. Love it.
It is awesome stuff. We'll have plenty more nuggets later in the week. I'll wrap with at least this.
And I should say, I think it's year 3. I think this is year 3 at Omaha, but you get the point.
Year 3. This is also the team that celebrates by demolishing a trash can, and
Yes.
they've been fun. Shouts, by the way, to our research team at HQ. I mean, just incredible resources and information. I'm going to dive into this over the next 24 to 48 hours. Couple housekeeping notes here. Okay. What is just look at the bracket if you can. What is your favorite first round game? I think, by the way, Louisville Creighton. I love starting the tournament on Thursday with an 8-9er, and that's exactly what we get. CBS 8-9 Louisville Creighton. That is Brian Anderson, Jim Jackson, and the tremendous Ali LaForce will be on the call for that. So that's going to be your first game. I just like starting the day with an 8-9. It feels like that's what we should do. That's not my favorite matchup. I think my favorite first rounder. There's a lot of good nominees.
For me, it's easy.
I think it's Memphis, Colorado State for me. I think that's my favorite first round matchup.
That's a great game. Penny's had such a wonderful season and had really positioned his team to go to the Sweet 16 for the first time ever under him, and for the first time as a program since 2009. And they're still in position to do it. They just won the AAC tournament without Tyrese Hunter, but it would just be so unfortunate to lose a guard of that caliber when you've got a team good enough to go to the Sweet 16. And this is obviously going to make it harder than it otherwise would be if he's not available to play or as healthy as he needs to be to play at the highest level. But still, yes, obviously for me, I'll be talking about that game, 2 hours a day for the next few days. So yes, that's compelling for me. And it's not even the game. I don't even care about the game. I just like how it sounds. Arkansas, Kansas, Bill Self, John Calipari. Like that, these men have coached against each other in big time games, and to see them, it's just it's weird. Bill Self and John Calipari coaching in, what's the seed on that? A 7-10 game. It's just kind of weird.
7-10 CBS Providence. I'll be there. Andrew Catalan, Steve Lapis, Evan Washburn on the call. Yes.
Yeah, a 7-10 game featuring John Calipari and Bill Self is not something I would have predicted maybe at any point in the history of this world.
I think it's amazing that these two coaches have found a way to be played squared up against each other. Kansas was a preseason #1 team, and it's been massively disappointing. Arkansas got itself in. Boogie Flan's going to play in the game, apparently. I think Arkansas fans might be split on whether or not that's a good idea. I haven't been able to check this. Someone said that I don't think they won an SEC game with Boogie Flan in the lineup. It's not an SEC game, so maybe don't have to worry about that so much. But yeah, good stuff. On Monday, I will be where GP is now. Okay.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. On the Boogie Flan thing,
yes.
First off, I don't think Arkansas has been so good that you quote don't want to mess with it, because like they haven't been that good. They've been better than they were. So yes, if Boogie Flan's available, throw him in there. But I'll just what this story reminds me of, smaller version of it. Remember Duke tried to bring Kyrie Irving back late in the season like this? I do. And it just didn't. It just changed. He was obviously amazing and still is, but it just sort of changed the dynamics of the team. And I remember, with the benefit of hindsight, wondering, what Kyrie Irving is amazing. He's about to be the number one pick in the draft, but would Duke did that just trying to reinsert him into this rotation all of a sudden after being gone for a long time? Like, was that more disruptive than it was impactful in a positive way?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a fair conversation to have about Boogie Flan. But to be clear, if he's available to play and I am in charge of the rotation, he's going to be in it.
All right. Looking ahead here, I believe, there's a million things going on, but I believe Parrish and I have another show on CBS Sports Network, 1 Eastern on Monday. So this will be a lot of big picture stuff. We're going to do it for a TV audience as well, for the hardcores that take in every single show we do that pops in the feed. We so appreciate you. Just be aware of the fact that we'll have some new angles and I'll have some more nuggets and all that stuff, but we are going to hit on some big storylines and build out the stuff there. Then I will be in studio for CBS Sports Network on Monday night. There will be a big time bracket breakdown, picking stuff, storylines, all that good stuff. Did this last year. I believe it is me, Stover, Chris Walker, and Wally Zerbiak. I think that is the roster there. We had a blast doing this last year. Looking forward to getting back down to New York and doing that as well. Parrish, you flying home tomorrow?
Late. I can't get home.
So you'll fly home tomorrow late. Okay. And then
Yeah,
I think we have. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, tomorrow morning I have my normal show, and then I would normally be able to get to the airport to catch the direct flight home from LaGuardia, but we're doing that 1 to 2 Eastern show on CBS Sports Network. I can't get home, so I don't even leave New York City till 8:45 tomorrow night. I'll walk in my front door around midnight, talk all day Tuesday, and then come back here on Wednesday.
Okay.
I'm going to go home. I'm going to fly home late tomorrow night, talk all day Tuesday from my house, and then come back here on Wednesday and then just keep talking. I'm just going to keep talking.
Tuesday, 1 Eastern as well, show plan for CBS Sports Network. And we will also have a mega, and then we will have one more. We got even one more show for you. There will be a mega preview, pick every game, our entire bracket, go through what we like or whatever. That's also coming. And I think if the schedule allows, we're going to try and go live with that Tuesday evening, maybe afternoon. We don't know the time yet, but just know you have this one. You're getting 2 TV shows that are going to be podcasts and another huge podcast even before the tournament starts to get going later this week. And as usual, we will have a recap every single night. And because of our travel schedules and Parrish in the studio, we have to juggle. But every show will either have me or Parrish on it, no matter what. And then we'll be together when both of our schedules allow.
Oh, it's going to be a fun month, isn't it?
I absolutely love the tournament, and I can't wait for the next one. That's a show, and there's no interviews with any members of Pearl Jam this year. That we did that last year was incredible. Eddie Vedder says he's really excited, but maybe next year.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat suggested I could have done the CBS Sports Network show from the Delta Sky Club.
I think
sign off at 1:56. I could be at my gate by 2:05. LaGuardia, man, the walk from the Sky Club to your gate at LaGuardia on a Delta flight, buddy, that's a good 9 to 11 minute walk. But if I signed off, Huck, Larnell, all that stuff, 1:56, I could probably get that plane. I could probably get on that 2:25 plane.
See if you can make it happen. I'd love to see you try. That would be some epic podcasting right there.
Nah. I'll be right here. I'll be sitting right here tomorrow in this exact same spot, talking to you at 1 o'clock Eastern. It'll be a good time. And if one of you in the chat says anything like, GP, I think I've already heard you say this before, give me a break. All right. I don't have any idea what I've said before. I am talking 5-6 hours a day straight into microphones. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know where I say it. I'm just talking all day. Ask me anything. I just talk about it.
I love it. Hey, everyone that joined us live, we always appreciate the Sunday Night Live viewership. And this is a highly consumed podcast. You should stay. Everyone taking in this, stick around for a while. We have a lot of fun all season long, but we understand that Sunday is going to prompt a lot of response and interest. And we appreciate you so much. And guess what? We're going to be talking to you again in 12.5 hours. Wrap us up, GP. That's a show.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend, Huck Larnell. Shouts to Pat Kelsey's entire family. They deserve everything they're getting. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. More of us than there are of them. That needs to be reflected in the comments. So please go do that. We will talk to you. We'll talk to you again. We'll talk to you again before you even know it. Till then, take care.